The silent dedication of a school janitor caught the attention of Barron Trump, and his response changed everything. In the early morning, the faint squeak of an old car echoed through the quiet parking lot of Oxbridge Academy, like a sad melody about to fade away. Thomas Miller, the dedicated janitor, stepped out of that car, clutching a thermos that had faded with time. He chose the most secluded corner to park, where no one would notice the peeling paint or the dents on the body, marks of an arduous journey. As the engine gave its last cough and fell silent, Thomas sighed softly, gripping the steering wheel as if to hold onto the last bit of strength. Another day, another opportunity. He patted the car gently, as if sending gratitude to the companion that had persevered with him, then quietly walked away. The early morning air was chilly, with the faint chirping of birds blending with the vague sounds of the awakening city. Thomas loved this peaceful moment, when the school was still in a brief slumber. He pushed the cleaning cart through the empty hallway, his eyes quietly observing each tile sparkling under the dim lights. Every classroom, every corner of the hallway, every trash can bore the mark of his careful hands. For Thomas, the work was not for show, but to fulfill his duty, a silent dedication that sought no recognition. To the students, he was Uncle Thomas, a friendly figure who always wore a gentle smile and was ready to chat. "Good morning, Peter, how's your presentation today?" Or "Lisa, that penalty kick yesterday was amazing." These simple words were his bridge to the kids, even though his role was often forgotten in the bustling flow of school life. He remembered each child's name, knew whether they liked playing basketball or loved drawing, but few understood the hidden corners of his life. Thomas was born in a small town in Florida, where big dreams were as rare as sunshine on a winter's day. The shock of losing his wife to cancer a decade ago left an irreplaceable void in him, along with the responsibility of raising 2 children alone. He worked tirelessly, sacrificing his own rest to plant seeds of hope for their future. The old car, with its rattling engine and unexpected breakdowns, was a clear embodiment of those difficult days. Some days the car wouldn't start, forcing him to walk in the rain or ask for a tow, but his will never surrendered. One day, he told himself, gripping the steering wheel as if to transfer more strength to make the car move. His 2 children were his life, and the dream of seeing them reach far was the light guiding him through the darkest nights. But what Thomas didn't know was that his silent dedication had caught the eye of Barron Trump, a quiet student with a sharp gaze. Through each small task he did, cleaning the hallways, chatting with students, or keeping a smile despite weary feet, Barron recognized the sincerity and quiet sacrifice of the janitor. And from there, a bold intention gradually formed in his mind, opening the door to unexpected changes. Thomas Miller, the dedicated janitor of Oxbridge Academy, never thought that his silent efforts or selfless kindness would be noticed by anyone. He simply did his job, cleaning the hallways, fixing small details, and greeting everyone with a warm smile, as if that was how he kept his little world running smoothly. But what he didn't expect was that a pair of keen eyes had been quietly observing him from afar. Barron Trump, a seemingly ordinary student, but with a rare sharpness and compassionate heart. Barron was not like the other students at Oxbridge. While his peers were busy talking about expensive cars, luxurious vacations, or the latest fashion trends, Barron often stood quietly in a corner, his eyes shining with curiosity. He was not indifferent. On the contrary, Barron was a thoughtful person, raised with the belief that every person has a story worth listening to. From a young age, he had learned to pay attention to the overlooked, not just words, but actions, silent struggles, and the small details that seemed insignificant. And then, in a quiet moment, Barron truly noticed Mr. Thomas for the first time. To most students, the janitor was just a blurry figure, an essential but unnoticed part of the school's landscape. But to Barron, Thomas Miller was a bright spot. He noticed how Mr. Thomas was always there early, holding a worn coffee thermos, his cleaning cart rattling like a steady melody as it rolled through the hallway. He saw the care in every movement Thomas made, wiping down desks, polishing the floors, as if he were turning the school into a second home for everyone. These observations began with small things. Barron noticed how Thomas always greeted people with a smile, even though his eyes reflected the fatigue of long days. He caught moments when Thomas thought no one was watching, like when he replaced a broken locker handle before the students even reported it. There was something about Mr. Thomas that Barron couldn't look away from, a quiet resilience, a kindness that asked for nothing in return. But Thomas had no idea that these simple actions were silently planting the seeds for something miraculous, a moment that would soon change his life forever. Everything became clearer one fateful afternoon. Barron was waiting for his ride after school, his gaze drifting across the parking lot. There, he saw Mr. Thomas hunched over the hood of his car, tools scattered on the ground. His old car had broken down again, a faint wisp of smoke rising from the engine. Thomas rolled up his sleeves, his hands smeared with grease, working tirelessly under the harsh Florida sun. When the car finally started, Barron saw him wipe the sweat from his brow with a dirty rag, mutter something to himself, and climb into the driver's seat. The scene etched itself into Barron's mind, like a vivid painting of patience and relentless effort. He wondered, why does Mr. Thomas drive a car that's barely running? How does he manage to keep smiling and being kind every day, even though life seems full of hardships? These questions urged Barron to take action. One afternoon, when he saw Thomas fixing a broken locker hinge near the hallway, Barron gathered his courage and approached. "Hello, Mr. Thomas," he said, his voice a bit hesitant. "Do you need any help?" Thomas looked up, momentarily surprised, then gave a gentle smile. "Hello, young man," he replied. "I think I can manage, but thank you for asking." Barron lingered, quietly watching Thomas finish the task. After a moment of silence, he spoke up. "You're always fixing things. Do you ever get tired of it?" Thomas laughed, a sincere sound that carried the weight of many years. "Oh, certainly," he said. "But someone has to do it, right? Besides, there's something truly satisfying about making things work again." That brief conversation opened the door to many more dialogues in the future. Over time, Barron gradually learned more about Mr. Thomas. He learned about Thomas's two children, a son who dreamed of becoming a mechanical engineer and a daughter who aspired to be a teacher. He heard stories about Thomas's late wife, the greatest love of his life, and how that loss had forged him into the resilient man he was today. Thomas never complained, but Barron could sense the exhaustion behind his voice, the subtle signs of the silent sacrifices he endured to provide for his family. One day, Barron decided to ask the question he had been pondering since that moment in the parking lot. "Mr. Thomas," he asked, "why don't you buy a new car? That one looks like it's about to break down completely." Thomas chuckled softly and shook his head. "A new car? Those things cost money, Barron, and I don't have much of that. Besides, as long as it gets me where I need to go, that's enough." That answer didn't satisfy Barron. He couldn't shake the image of Mr. Thomas struggling with his old car or the fact that this man had given so much without asking for anything. To Barron, Thomas was more than just a janitor. He was a father, a mentor, a silent hero of the school. It wasn't fair. He knew he couldn't solve all of Thomas's difficulties, but at the very least, he wanted to do something to make his life easier. That evening, during family dinner, Barron shared the story with his parents. "Do you know Mr. Thomas, the janitor at school?" he asked, pushing his plate back and forth. His father nodded. "The one who's always smiling?" "Yes, I know him." Barron set his fork down, his expression serious. "I think we should help him. His car barely runs, and he works so hard for everyone at school. He never asks for anything, but he deserves more than that." His mother tilted her head, looking at him intently. "What are you thinking, Barron?" He hesitated for a second, then said, "I want to buy him a car, something reliable, so he doesn't have to fix it every weekend just to get to work." His parents exchanged a glance. "That's a big gesture, son," his father said carefully. "Do you have a plan yet?" "I'll find a way," Barron replied, his voice resolute. "He's done so much for all of us, and I can't just sit back and do nothing." But Barron knew that this idea couldn't be accomplished alone. Every time he saw Mr. Thomas mopping the floors or fixing lockers, the sense of urgency grew stronger. Buying a car wasn't something a teenager could do on his own. He needed a plan, and more importantly, he needed help. Barron returned to talk to his parents on another evening. "I don't want this to just come from our family," he explained. "It should come from everyone at school. Mr. Thomas has impacted so many people here. I think it would mean more if we all came together." His father leaned back, nodding thoughtfully. "You're right. It's not just about the money. It's about showing him that he's appreciated. You'll need everyone involved. teachers, students, staff. Are you ready for that? Barron hesitated for only a second before nodding. I'll do whatever it takes. The next day, Barron began to put his plan into action. During lunch, he quietly approached a few trusted classmates, his voice soft as if afraid the sound might carry too far. You know Mr. Miller, the janitor, he whispered, his eyes lighting up at the mention of the name. He's amazing, isn't he? One friend nodded and replied, yeah, he's always helping everyone. What's up? Barron leaned in closer, his voice even softer. I want to buy him a new car. His current one is really old and about to break down completely. He's worked so hard for all of us. It's time we did something for him. His friend's initial reaction was a mix of surprise and excitement. Really? But how can we do that? One friend asked, eyes wide with curiosity. Barron smiled confidently and replied, we'll find a way. I'm not asking for much, just a little from each person. If we all come together, even with just a bit, it will make a big difference. The news began to spread through the school, quietly like a breeze through the hallways, with no one wanting to reveal the plan too soon. Barron didn't stop there. He approached teachers, coaches, and even the school counselor, explaining his idea one by one. Their response exceeded his expectations. Mr. Miller is one of the hardest workers here, one teacher said, pulling out a $50 bill and handing it to Barron. Count me in. But Barron understood that even with everyone's enthusiastic contributions, the cost of a new car was still substantial. That's when he received support from his parents. Barron's father contacted a local car dealership and shared his son's inspiring story. The dealership manager, moved by the emotion, agreed to sell a brand new red Jeep SUV at a significant discount. We'll take care of the rest, Barron's father said to him in a warm voice. You just focus on making this moment special for Mr. Miller. With the car secured, Barron turned his attention to the reveal. He wanted it to be a memory that Mr. Miller would cherish forever. After lively discussions with friends and teachers, they decided to hold an assembly the following Friday. It would be the perfect stage for the big surprise. The entire school would be present, and they could present the gift in front of everyone. Preparations intensified. Students worked together to create a giant banner that read, "Thank you, Mr. Miller," painted in the school colors, blue and gold, with handwritten messages of gratitude covering the paper. Teachers quietly coordinated the logistics to ensure Thomas would attend the ceremony without suspecting a thing. Barron spent hours practicing his speech. He paced back and forth in his room, murmuring each word, hoping they would convey what Mr. Miller meant to everyone. As the days passed, the atmosphere in the school grew increasingly vibrant. Students whispered about the plan in the hallways, carefully avoiding being overheard by Mr. Miller. Even staff members joined in, contributing to the fund and sharing heartwarming stories. There was a time he stayed late just to help me find a student's lost backpack, one teacher recalled, her voice full of respect. He didn't have to do that, but he did. By Thursday afternoon, everything was ready. The shiny red Jeep was hidden behind the gymnasium, freshly washed and gleaming in the sunset. The banner was hung high, the speeches were finalized, and every detail was meticulously planned. But as the big day approached, Barron felt a wave of anxiety rising within him. What if things don't go as I imagined? He asked his mother that evening, his voice tinged with doubt. She smiled gently and placed a hand on his shoulder. Barron, this isn't just about the car. This is about showing Mr. Miller how much he's appreciated. And that's something no one can misunderstand. Friday morning arrived, bringing with it an unprecedented, vibrant energy at Oxbridge Academy. Students lined up to enter the auditorium, their lively chatter resounding like a symphony of excitement. Their eyes sparkled like small stars in the morning sky. Backstage, Barron Trump stood quietly, clutching his notepaper so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He took a deep breath, trying to dispel the wave of nervousness surging in his chest. Peeking through the gap in the curtain, he caught sight of Thomas Miller quietly sitting in the back row, his demeanor as humble as ever. The sight ignited a flame of determination in Barron. This was not just about a car, but about honoring a man who had silently dedicated himself without seeking the spotlight. As the curtain slowly rose, the auditorium fell silent, and Barron wondered, does Mr. Miller truly understand how important he is to all of us? For Thomas Miller, Friday morning was no different from any other day in his routine. His old car limped into its familiar spot in the parking lot, the engine wheezing and groaning like a tired old man before shutting off with a sputtering pop. Thomas sat for a moment, taking a deep breath of the fresh air, mentally preparing for the long day ahead. His morning routine was an unchanging melody, mopping floors, polishing, cleaning classrooms, like the steady beat of a heart keeping everything in order, even when life outside was as chaotic as a roaring sea. But today, something different awaited, though he was still completely unaware. Mid-morning, as Thomas pushed his cleaning cart through the quiet hallway, the principal's voice suddenly came over the intercom. "Good morning, students and staff. Please come to the auditorium for a special assembly. We look forward to seeing everyone there." Thomas shrugged slightly. Assemblies usually had nothing to do with him. He intended to continue his work, letting the familiar rhythm guide him, but a teacher approached with a warm smile. "Mr. Miller should come too. You'll want to see this." Reluctantly, he followed the crowd to the auditorium, quietly slipping into the back row, hoping to blend into the crowd like an invisible shadow. The large auditorium was buzzing like a hive, but Thomas didn't understand why. He saw the principal step onto the stage, greeted by enthusiastic applause like waves crashing on the shore. The principal's speech was brief but weighty. "Today's assembly is not about academics or announcements, but to honor a special member of our community." Those words sparked a flicker of curiosity in Thomas, but he still didn't suspect that he was the center of attention. Then Barron Trump stepped onto the stage, holding his note cards like a small shield. Thomas knew Barron, a quiet student who always politely greeted him whenever they passed in the hallway. He smiled slightly, thinking the boy must have done something to be proud of. "Good morning, everyone," Barron began, his voice steady but filled with emotion like a deep river. "I'm here today because there's someone in this school who deserves recognition, someone who makes this place better every day." Thomas frowned slightly, his eyes scanning the room, wondering who Barron was talking about. "I'm talking about Mr. Miller," Barron continued, and the auditorium erupted in applause like thunder. Thomas froze, his hands gripping the edge of his seat, his eyes fixed on the student on stage, his heart seeming to stop in that moment. Barron smiled at the crowd, waiting for the noise to settle like the wind calming after a storm. "Mr. Miller is not just a janitor. He is the one who is here every morning to ensure the classrooms are clean, the hallways are tidy, and this school feels like a real home. He fixes everything that's broken, from lockers, leaky faucets, to even our spirits when the day becomes gloomy." Those words washed over Thomas like a warm wave, sweeping away the invisible shell he had built around himself. He had always worked without expecting thanks, and now, hearing someone say it in front of hundreds of people overwhelmed him, like standing in the middle of a boundless ocean. The stage lights dimmed, and a video appeared on the large screen behind Barron. It showed images of Thomas mopping floors, fixing chairs, helping students, interspersed with testimonials from those around him. "He always has a smile," one student said. "He never complains, even when we make his job harder," another student admitted, followed by laughter rippling through the auditorium. But Thomas didn't laugh. He was too stunned, his throat tightening as if being choked, trying to comprehend what was happening. When the video ended, the entire auditorium stood up, the applause and cheers erupting like a volcano. Barron stepped forward, his voice unwavering. "Mr. Miller, we know you never ask for anything, but we see you. We see how hard you've worked, how much you care, and how much you've given to this school. Today, we want to give back." Barron gestured toward the side of the stage, and the double doors slowly opened, revealing a shiny red Jeep SUV under a large banner that read, "Thank you, Mr. Miller." The auditorium exploded with cheers, the applause resounding like thunder. Thomas's mouth fell open, his eyes fixed on the car, his mind spinning like a whirlwind. "Mr. Miller," Barron said, turning back to him with a radiant smile, "this is from all of us." The stage lights shone directly on Thomas, who still hadn't left his seat. A teacher gently touched his shoulder, urging him to stand. He slowly rose, his legs trembling as if they no longer belonged to him, and took step after step toward the stage. The applause was like thunder, but all Thomas could focus on was the gleaming red car and the beaming faces of the students and teachers, those who had come together to create this miraculous moment. When he finally reached the stage, Barron handed him the keys. Thomas hesitated, his hand shaking as he accepted them. He looked at Barron, then at the crowd, and finally back at the car. I don't know what to say, he stammered, his voice choked amid the ceaseless applause. You didn't have to do this. I just do my job. But as the cheers grew louder, Thomas began to realize this wasn't just about the car. This was about all the lives he had quietly touched, and the community coming together to remind him that his kindness, though silent, had never been forgotten. In a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, Thomas Miller stood on the stage, his eyes never leaving the shiny red Jeep SUV just a few steps away. The keys felt heavy in his hand, as if carrying the weight of that moment. The auditorium was still buzzing with cheers, but for Thomas, everything seemed to blur. He wasn't just overwhelmed by the gift, but by the deeper meaning it carried. He walked slowly forward, his steps unsteady, his hand lightly brushing the smooth surface of the car. The fresh red paint gleamed under the lights, like a flame in complete contrast to the old, broken-down car he had left behind that morning. His throat tightened, and when he turned back to face the crowd, his eyes were brimming with tears. The auditorium fell silent, everyone waiting for his words. Thomas gripped the microphone tightly, trying to find words to express the storm of emotions inside him. I don't know what to say, he began, his voice trembling but full of emotion. This is more than I could have ever imagined. I don't even know how to thank you all. He paused, taking a deep breath, his eyes sweeping over the sea of faces, students, teachers, staff, all looking at him with warmth and admiration. I've always believed, he continued, his voice gradually steadying, that kindness isn't something you do for recognition, but something you do because it's right. I've lived by that, and to see everyone come together like this, it means more than any words I could say. The audience applauded again, but Thomas raised his hand, signaling he wasn't finished. You know, when my wife passed away 10 years ago, I didn't think I'd ever feel this kind of joy again. She was my rock, my partner, and losing her left a hole in my heart that I thought nothing could fill. But I had 2 kids to raise, and I knew I had to keep going for them. His voice choked, his eyes blurring with memories. Every morning I wake up, I think about them. They're the reason I work so hard, the fire that keeps me going. I want them to see that no matter how tough life gets, you keep moving forward, you keep giving, even when you don't have much to give. He paused, looking down at the keychain in his hand. And now, thanks to you all, thanks to this wonderful gift, I can give them a little bit more. I can get to work without worrying if the car will break down halfway. I can take my daughter to her dance performance without wondering if the car will make it. This isn't just a car. This is a blessing, something that will change our lives in ways you can't imagine. Tears streamed down his cheeks, and many in the audience quietly wiped away their own tears. Thomas looked at Barron, his voice gentle but overflowing with gratitude. Barron, I don't know how you thought of this, but you've done something extraordinary. You saw me, you saw the work I do, and you cared enough to make this happen. That means more than any words I can say. He pulled Barron into a tight embrace, and the crowd erupted again into resounding applause. As they parted, Thomas turned back to the microphone. To everyone who helped make this happen, students, teachers, parents, I want you to know that you've reminded me of something I had almost forgotten, that no matter how hard life gets, there is still good in this world. There are still people who care. The principal stepped forward, placing a hand on Thomas's shoulder. Mr. Miller, this school is lucky to have you. You're not just a part of this community, you are its heart. Today, we are here to celebrate you. The applause resounded endlessly. Students stood on chairs cheering. Teachers wiped away tears. Thomas looked out at the crowd, his heart filled with profound gratitude. For years, he had worked in silence, believing his efforts went unnoticed. But today, on that stage, he realized how much his presence mattered, and that the kindness he had given had blossomed in the hearts of an entire community. As the assembly gradually quieted down, the atmosphere in the auditorium remained warm with lingering emotions. Students approached the stage in small groups, where Thomas Miller stood quietly, his eyes still shining with astonishment. Some shook his hand, firm grips like affirmations of gratitude. Others quickly hugged him, brief but heartfelt embraces, while a few managed only to say thank you, Mr. Miller, before walking away, their cheeks flushed with emotion. Thomas's children, who had been invited as part of the surprise, also appeared on stage. Their faces were radiant with pride, like small lanterns illuminating the moment. "Dad, you deserve this," his son said, wrapping his arms around him tightly, his voice firm as if to dispel any doubts in his father's heart. After that, as the crowd began to thin out, Thomas took a moment to walk over to the shiny red Jeep SUV. He sat behind the wheel, his hand gliding lightly over the steering wheel, feeling the unfamiliar smoothness. No more shaking, no more groaning of the old engine, no more feeling like everything could fall apart at any moment. His daughter climbed into the passenger seat, a wide smile spreading across her face as she explored the new features. "This is amazing, Dad," she exclaimed, her voice clear as a bell. "It's like a dream." Thomas smiled, his lips trembling slightly. The burden of years of struggle, the long days of worry, seemed to be gently drifting away. "And it's all thanks to them," he whispered, his voice soft but heavy with emotion. When Thomas drove away from the parking lot at the end of the day, the sunset bathed the scene behind him in gold. He realized that the car was not just a material gift, it was the beginning of something greater. The real gift lay in the reminder that his work, kindness, and silent sacrifices were not in vain. As the assembly ended, the students streamed out of the auditorium, their laughter and chatter echoing lively. But a line of people lingered, patiently waiting to say a word to Mr. Miller. They shook his hand, hugged him, or simply offered a sincere thank you. Thomas stood near the stage, overwhelmed with emotion but still managing a smile, while his two children clung to him, their eyes sparkling with pride. A shy sophomore hesitantly stepped forward, clutching a small folded piece of paper. "Mr. Miller," she said softly, her voice trembling like a gentle breeze, "I just wanted to give you this." She placed the paper in his hand and quickly blended into the crowd before he could respond. Thomas unfolded it, his eyes scanning the sincere handwriting. "Thank you for always being kind. There are days when I feel invisible, but your smile reminds me that someone sees me. I hope today has shown you how much you mean to all of us." He read it again, his throat tightening as if being choked. It wasn't just the car, not just the applause, but the quiet acknowledgement of the small things he thought no one noticed, that made him feel seen, for the first time in many long, quiet years. That afternoon, as he prepared to leave, the brilliant red Jeep SUV waited for him in the parking lot, a complete contrast to the old car it replaced. His two children climbed into the back seat, giggling as they explored every new detail. "It even smells new," his daughter exclaimed, her hand sliding along the seat cover, her excitement impossible to hide. Thomas paused for a moment before getting into the car, turning to look back at the school. The events of the day flooded his mind. The resounding cheers, the emotional speeches, Barron's steady voice as he spoke about one person's impact. He had spent years cleaning these hallways, quietly doing his job, never expecting recognition. But today, he saw that every act of kindness, no matter how small, left a profound mark. On the way home, the car glided smoothly down the street, a far cry from the intermittent groaning he was used to. His son leaned forward from the back seat, a radiant smile spreading across his face. "This car is amazing, Dad. But what's even better is that everyone loves you so much. I mean, they really love you." Thomas glanced at his son through the rearview mirror, his heart swelling with a wave of warmth. "It's not about being loved, son," he replied, his voice low but firm. "It's about doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. And sometimes, when you least expect it, people show you that they've been watching all along." That evening, as the excitement of the day gradually subsided, Thomas sat at the kitchen table, his gaze directed out the window. The red Jeep was parked in the driveway, sparkling under the fading twilight. From the living room, the lively chatter of his two children echoed, as they enthusiastically discussed plans for the weekend. For the first time in many years, Thomas felt a profound sense of peace. He thought about the student's note, carefully tucked away in his pocket, and the way Barron had described him during the assembly. It wasn't just the car, it was the deeper meaning it carried. Thomas realized that all the little things he had done, the kindness he had given without expecting anything in return, had rippled out to the students, teachers, and even parents. They had noticed, and today, they had repaid him in a way that made him feel humbled and deeply moved. In the days that followed, the story of the assembly spread beyond the walls of Oxbridge Academy. Students posted clips on social media, and soon, the story attracted widespread attention. People from all over commented, sharing their own experiences of unsung heroes who had changed their lives. Thomas was amazed by the reach, but his heart was filled with gratitude that his story could inspire others. If it encouraged even one person to show kindness or gratitude, it was all worth it. That day, Thomas understood that the most valuable lesson wasn't what he had received, but what the students had demonstrated. Gratitude has transformative power. It connects people, uplifts them in ways that go far beyond material value. A simple acknowledgement of someone's dedication can ignite a spark that spreads far beyond that moment. For Thomas, the red Jeep would forever be a reminder of the community that cherished him, not just for what he did, but for who he was. For the students, that day was a lesson in the power of coming together to honor those who make their world better through every small act. As the sun set on that memorable day, Thomas sat on the porch with his children, watching them laugh and talk about the future. He smiled, thinking to himself that the most valuable lessons aren't taught in classrooms, he told himself, but are for all of us. The heart is etched through moments like this. This isn't just for me. Goodness has a way of spreading, and if we keep giving it, who knows where it will lead us? Take a minute to reflect on this story and ask yourself, who in your life deserves a thank you, a kind gesture, or simply a smile? As Thomas Miller's story shows, the smallest things can lead to extraordinary moments. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to receive more stories that remind us of the power of kindness and community. Together, we can build a world where no good deed goes unnoticed, because kindness is not just a gift, but a legacy.